Good morning, everyone. Thanks for zooming in today with us. We'll give it about a minute or two and let everybody into the room before we get this presentation started. And as we do this, I'll just go live on Facebook and see if anybody on there wants to join us. Good morning, everybody. We're just going to give it about another minute or so and get started while people join us. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to give it about another 30 seconds. I see a couple people in the room. We'll wait for the rest to join so we can get started. All right, I guess we can get started. If anybody joins us late, no problem. Just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. On behalf of the Sandbox Centre team, welcome to our Experts in Residence session, Financial Growth. For those who haven't been acquainted with me or the Sandbox, I'm Mackenzie. I'm one of the 6 members of the team. We're located downtown Barrie and online to connect people and their ideas to business resources on their journey to success. If you haven't attended one of our Experts in Residence sessions before, we're happy to have you with us. And for those returning, welcome back. As COVID-19 continues to change the global economy and pushes us to do business as unusual, having a diversified customer base is critical to your company's success. Opportunity awaits, but is your company ready to go global? Today, we're thrilled to have Amanda Klukowicz, Account Manager with Export Development Canada, covering Simcoe County and Vaughan. She has been with EDC for nearly 12 years and has spent the last 3 years working directly with Canadian exporters and industry partners to go global. Additionally, she's a certified international trade professional through the Forum for International Trade. Amanda is here today to help us learn how to develop your strategy to start exporting or expand to a new market and answer any burning questions you may have. So please use the Q&A feature that's at the bottom of your screen. We'll be monitoring this throughout the session. If you have any questions come across your mind, simply pop them right in there and we'll try to get to answering as many as possible. Thank you for all of the community sharing of our supporting with the events, and of course, a big thank you to our sponsor EDC for delivering today's session. So without further ado, we can get started. Amanda, I will hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Obviously, you know, I wish I could be there in person as we were just talking about, but I, feel like I'm kind of missing something out of my week still, not coming into the Sandbox as I normally do. So, this is kind of the next best thing. And I'm so happy that you guys have been so innovative in thinking of different ways to connect with all the members of the Sandbox and, kind of beyond in terms of supporting them through this very challenging time that, seems to be continuing on probably a lot longer than we thought. But, in that kind of regard, I would say that, doing business as unusual as we are calling it is almost becoming a little bit more usual, maybe we can say. Really it seems that most of us are going to be, continuing on the same path into 2021. So, we really can't kind of take a time out anymore in developing new business strategies, or, we can't kind of wait until COVID ends to, you know, make great growth choices for our companies. So maybe I'll get you to switch over just to the agenda for today. So we have lots of great stuff that we're going to go over. We've got a pretty full agenda, so I'm going to try to chat for about maybe till 10:35 to 10:40, and then leave at least 25 to 20 minutes for some questions at the end. So please feel free to fill up the chat function with any questions that you have as we go along the way, and we can get those all addressed at the end. So really, you know, here's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Maybe we can kind of kick it off to just talk about EDC as the international risk experts. So for those of you who don't know Export Development Canada, we are Canada's export credit agency. And really, that means that we want to help companies grow and succeed internationally. You know, a few years ago, EDC really took a look at its mandate and took a look at the way that it was helping to serve exporters. And, you know, we really realized that we wanted to help a little bit earlier in that process. So not only helping companies that are currently exporting, but really wanting to support the growth of companies who are looking to take that next step. Now, a lot of you know, companies, when I meet them, you know, at different events, they're kind of wondering, you know, when's the right fit to reach out to Export Development Canada? You know, when should EDC get involved in my growth strategy? And I really would say, as soon as you meet somebody from EDC. You know, we really have the ability to support, you know, of course, traditional manufacturing companies, but we also do a lot of kind of, you know, untraditional type of support for service-based exports, and, you know, companies that might not be doing direct exporting, but perhaps are a part of the export supply chain. So this is something that we call the indirect export strategy. So, you know, if you are a larger component of somebody else's export strategy, then that might be worth a conversation for us as well. Now, you know, you don't have to have an export strategy already built out to start the conversation with EDC. Really, you know, coming to us is the first step in building out that growth strategy for yourself. Now, you know, most of the time when I say this, people still kind of walk away a little bit tentatively. So I love to do a section here. I kind of stole this from one of my colleagues, and, you know, we just do some myth busting. So there's a kind of number of different scenarios where people feel that, you know, maybe they're not really in the best place to start exporting yet. You know, they might think that, you know, maybe I'm not big enough, but, you know, exporting can be for smaller companies as well. EDC has had a really big focus on small to medium-sized business in the past, I would say 5 to 7 years. And I've seen some great success stories come out of some of the smaller businesses that I've helped to move forward. Now, it's not just about selling goods. You know, I have to tell this story because I always find it so interesting that, you know, sometimes people don't even realize that they're even exporters. I, you know, met this woman at an industry event, and she was telling me a bit about her business. And, you know, she said, well, EDC wouldn't be the right fit for me right now because, you know, I'm not exporting. So she goes on to tell me that, you know, she has this business where she organizes wine tours. And we chat a little bit more, and I find out that most of her clients are actually international companies. So really, her service is developing these tours. And even though these people are coming into Canada, coming into the Niagara region to tour around and taste wines, you know, the service is not driving the bus. The service is creating the experience and creating this togetherness and team building. And that was really what she provided. So, you know, by discovering that, you know, who she was invoicing at the end of the day was these large international companies, we really realized that she was actually already exporting. Now, I know there's many people who also feel that, you know, maybe this is too complicated to take on. You know, the nature of their business might just be too detailed, that they have, you know, several different value streams that they offer to their clients. And, you know, how do you encapsulate every single piece of that and really export each one of those components? Now, you know, export, I'm saying kind of goods and maybe the customer service that goes along with it. Well, it doesn't need to be, you know, something that can't be done. I think it's just a matter of, you know, taking a look at how big that sandwich is and kind of taking it some smaller bites at a time. And of course, sometimes people feel that they might not be well placed in the price comparison, but definitely I think we've come to see that Canadians can be price competitive as well. Now, we love to use the saying at EDC that we take on risk so that you can take on the world. I know that when we say the word risk, it often kind of gets people's backs a little up. Nobody wants to kind of take something on that's going to be risky. But, in actuality, there is no plan that you can build out for your business that will be completely free of risk. When you think about risk and really strategies to address it, you kind of have 4 different choices. So you can avoid risk, you can reduce risk, you can transfer risk, and you can retain risk. And really, when you're thinking about building out strategies for your company, you're going to have to integrate probably all 4 of those. Now, a lot of people go with the avoid risk strategy. But what I also like to put forth is that by avoiding some risks, you might be avoiding some opportunities. So one of the common ones that we talk to our clients a lot about is payment terms and providing open payment terms. Now, if you've been getting cash up front, that can be really challenging when, you're looking to make that transition, or if your customer has kind of requested that they would like to go in this direction. Now, it can present challenges, for risk of non-payment, which is number 1. But secondly, it can pose challenges in terms of working capital strategies. Now, the risk of not opening up open payment terms to your client is that you might be at risk of actually losing that business. Perhaps that customer might start to seek out different suppliers and might start to broaden their base of who they might be making purchases from. So you might be putting yourself at risk to lose some really great clients or retain clients. So that's just an example of, trading out one risk for another. Now, when we talk about all this risk of, exporting, really what EDC has come to find is that exporters actually do better. I mean, there's a few kind of facts here up on the screen that, yes, of course, everyone I'm sure loves the first one, that they generate more revenue. Obviously, that has to be attributed to a larger client base, but really a lot of it goes back to that innovation. I think about a company who does, cost analysis on actually beginning their export business and saying, okay, well, I don't think it's going to work in this market because, our product might be too expensive to actually, send or get out there for the price point that we're doing it. Well, that's going to actually kind of force some innovation in a kind of fun kind of way, that you're going to have to think of different ways to do the same thing, perhaps for less. And through that, by building out that client base for yourself, you're really going to experience less risk. The interesting part about this is, when you think about all the different clients that you'd be bringing on throughout the world, you're going to bring along some benefits. So you're definitely going to get a spread of market risk. So if you've been traditionally stuck in one market and you bring on one where it's more financially stable or more politically stable where you choose to sell into, then that's definitely going to help to kind of balance out some of the challenges that you may have. Another one that we talk about is seasonality. If you have a product that, perhaps really goes along with a particular time of the year, by expanding your sales into a different region of the world, you might be able to balance out some of, kind of the lumps and bumps in the income statement that kind of will help to alleviate some of the ups and downs. Now, thinking about taking on lots of exports, there's a number of different ways that you can really do this. You can certainly, follow your customers to different areas of the world. There's all sorts of new technology. I mean, I think so many people have been put in the position right now where they're looking to build out their e-commerce strategy. I know that Sandbox has had lots of different e-learning opportunities to go through how to really build that for yourself. But that's only one way that you can take a look at getting your product to market or your service to market. The other thing that you might want to take a look at is maybe a distributor or an agent. If you are looking to sell to a place that's in another time zone, perhaps you'd like to have somebody actually on the ground there that's going to be able to address some of these client concerns, in their time frame as well. Now, there's a couple of other ones that EDC, really helps to support for all Canadian exporters, and those are more of boots on the ground type of scenarios. So, thinking about having strategic alliances with other companies that, really complement your product suite or service suite is really great. Bringing in a partner is a great way to access a new, set of leads that you can actually start to market to. Now, the final one, and this was something that, has been a really big focus for myself in the past couple of years, particularly in the US, was to make a direct investment in the market. Part of the benefit of actually having a facility located in another company, whether it's a sales office or a manufacturing facility, or a warehouse, is having that ability to get, products and services to your clients a lot faster. Having reduced wait time and having some reliability on, what those wait times are going to be. We've all experienced challenges, I'm sure, if you've already been exporting, of getting things across the border, and that can sometimes, pose some issues, in terms of getting things across in a timely fashion. So having things already there in stock and getting them direct to your clients is absolutely a great strategy to think about as well. A lot of people, when Trump came into power several years ago, really asked me kind of, what did they think was going to happen in terms of, sales to the US. And a lot of the companies who I spoke to who chose to go in the direction of actually making an investment, of having, some sort of physical presence in the US, were able to take advantage of that perception of made in America. So, unfortunately, we can't always control the global economy and, political decisions, but we can certainly always try to find a way to respond to them that's going to be beneficial for your business. So when is it time to start? This is another great question. So, once you've kind of developed a sound and scalable business model in Canada, then, that's probably the right time to start thinking about going to another market. If actually you're not finding that the Canadian market has had the uptick that you were expecting it to have, then that's really another time to start taking a look at it. Something else that I've really started to see a lot over the time that I've been at EDC has been that a great idea and a great team can actually bring forth a lot of success without having to wait. I've seen so many companies, as opposed to just focusing on the Canadian market to start, have really, started their business selling to Canada and the US, or Canada and Europe. And, they've had such great success because they've been able to, do that innovation as things begin. And, really, once you've immersed yourself in that ecosystem, and once you've saturated one market, it's kind of like this thing that we say at EDC too, is risk, reward, repeat. Now, the other thing that I always like to kind of add in is, in terms of when you should start exporting, is really when you have an export plan prepared. And that's going to be kind of the next segment that we are going to talk about as well. Now, I really feel strongly about export plans. I've seen their success. I've had companies that have done them and, done them over and over and over again. So we can talk a little bit about what actually that looks like and how this is a really great way to start assessing whether you're really ready to take that next step into exporting. So the first piece of your export plan that you would really want to look at is really doing a SWOT analysis, checking out what those strengths and weaknesses are. And it's not to say that if you, identify some weaknesses that absolutely you should not be exporting. Really, this is going to be giving you your internal to-do list of things that you need to take a look at. As you build out the timeline of when you really want to start this exporting, you're going to have to take a look at, your team. So if you have somebody that is going to be, working their way way up in the company and perhaps they're going to be moving out of their current role, now's the time to plan of who's going to come in and take that over for them. When you take a look at your financial capacities and, all the process and technology, do you need a technology upgrade? What will that really, kind of cost you in the long run? And, building those things out before you start is really going to help to prevent some of those challenges that you can meet later on in the process. I know that, for so many people, this idea of exporting or actually selling internationally has not been something that they necessarily planned. An opportunity kind of presented itself that, they were doing really well in the Canadian market, and all of a sudden they had somebody outreach to them to say, we'd really love to, buy your product, or we'd love to have you come and complete this project. We saw your work on, XYZ. So, sometimes we don't have an opportunity to do this. So even if you have started exporting to a particular market and you're thinking, I want to tighten this up, you can absolutely go back and do this kind of assessment on yourself and still pick out some of those strengths and weaknesses, and it might help you be better prepared to take on your next market as well. Now, in terms of looking externally, there's, it seems like there's so much to consider. When we think about all the different things that influence, actually getting a gooder service out of the country, there just seems to be such a huge laundry list to do. Now, this is usually when people start to really consider where they should really be exporting. And, something that I think is often forgotten is how many free trade agreements are available to Canada. So currently, Canada has 14 different free trade agreements with 51 partnering countries. So that's a pretty big pool to draw from to begin with. And really, when we take a look at some of even the most recent successes, Global Affairs Canada Economic Research, provided us some statistics on CETA, and really the largest increase in exporting of goods to Europe has been on goods and services where there's been a decline in tariff rates. Now, this is a good time to start thinking about, things like that, and logistics, and all the different regulations and costs that are going to go along with that. So I also kind of say at this time, it's a good time to start doing some research. And the one thing that I often suggest to companies to start taking a look at in terms of what they're going to need next, and what other pieces they're going to have to put into place, is the idea of Incoterms. Incoterms is a set of rules and regulations that is internationally recognized and can be a great way to determine with a buyer and a seller, each piece of the process in exporting. So it's going to, cover some shipping, it's going to cover receiving, and all the kind of pieces in between. Now, when you're building out this strategy, we really have to think about, what are the goals that we're trying to achieve here? Why do you want to sell on an international scale? Is it, to bring a greater financial success to the company? And, when you're doing your cost analysis, you're going to be able to kind of get a good idea of whether that's really true or not. So I would say that, there's other things also to consider aside, we'll say financial pieces aside. So I was actually making an order from a bath and body kind of company this week, and I had a chance to take a look at their mission statement. And one of the pieces that they had included in there was, we believe that all people should enjoy freedom and movement across the world. Now, this company is international. They have stores in like a ton of countries and different places, and they certainly kind of live up to their brand. But, that's something that I often suggest to clients as well, is to take a look at, what do they want their mission to be, and how is this export strategy going to actually, live into that, and how is it going to help you to live what you really want to showcase as a company? I'm just grabbing a few notes here. Now, the one thing that, when you're taking a look at building this strategy, how will you get where you need to go? This is really where you're going to start doing a bit of that cost analysis piece. And it's not only going to be the cost analysis that you're going to have to undertake in terms of, how much are things going to cost for you to manufacture or provide to your clients, but also what's your pricing strategy going to look like? If something is going to obviously cost more to get it across to a different country, are you going to be marketing this to the same segment of the market that you are providing it to in Canada? So just something to keep in mind that, often a cost strategy will affect a marketing strategy, and just how interconnected each of these pieces can be. And then, I always say here, the implementation schedule is extremely important. Nothing is more important than actually being able to hold people accountable for each piece of the pie. There's so many pieces when it goes into exporting that, you really have to keep your eye on that. It's not easy to do on your own. So, going back to why it's so important to have the right team in place, but having, clear and, clear measurable, deadlines for everyone is really going to help to get things there in the way that you envision. Just had to have a sip of water there. Now, when we talk about what and who do I need, we did talk a little bit about that team earlier in this presentation to say that, yes, having, the right group of people can really be integral, but, there's a lot of other pieces that you need to put in place, in the background to really have a successful export strategy. Now, I know this is probably a little small, but, just kind of goes to show trying to fit this all in one slide is sometimes challenging. So, having the right financial pieces in place and, going back to that risk mitigation strategy. Risk mitigation strategies are not just about, can I get that there? Well, what if somebody is not able to pay? What if, there's an accident on the boat when it goes across the water? There's a lot of different places that risk can be involved in, any type of business endeavor, but certainly when you're going internationally, there are more to consider. So, having a risk mitigation strategy for each piece of your business is going to be really important. Now, this is also a great place to talk about some of the other strategies that I mentioned around risk. So we talked about avoiding risk, but this is a great way to talk about reducing risk and also transferring risk. So I'm just going to jump over to the next slide, actually. Now, there's the risk of having not enough working capital. So, how can you reduce that risk? Well, you can get other partners involved. You can certainly make sure that you have set yourself up with a great foundation, with your financial institution, or a group like BDC is another great option. They can help you build out that financial strategy to reduce the risk of, running out of working capital. Now, when we take a look at something like the, challenge of non-payment, this is another place that EDC really takes pride in supporting exporters. This is, typically where we come in with a credit insurance type of solution where we will say, okay, why don't you transfer some of that risk to us, where you can insure all of your receivables to ensure that if there is a reason why your customer cannot pay you, that you're able to recoup, a certain percentage of that invoice value. Now, there's other risks and other partners in the market that can certainly assist, but, one of the ones that, has been a huge topic of conversation over, the past few months has been managing foreign exchange risks. With the dollar fluctuating so much, it has really come top of mind is, the dollar going to be worth $1, in a year from now. What will the economy look like and how will this affect, the profit that I'm earning at the end of the day? So, this is a great place to go back to say, who do I need? What partners do I need to engage to be informed and make the right decisions for my business? Now, this one is probably my favorite slide because, the measure and adjust is so important. Like we talked about, getting all of those milestones set up is really going to help you decide whether you're on track or off track. And, you're going to have these checks and balances for so many different areas of the business. And, please don't wait until the end of the, strategy to decide whether you've hit the mark or not. Checking in frequently, having those monthly check-ins or quarterly check-ins to see whether, you're hitting the right milestones is so important. Now, kind of for the last, I'll say 5 or 10 minutes of the presentation, what I wanted to see is, Mackenzie, is Agath on the line?
Hey, Amanda, yes, I believe she is.
Great. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to cue her in just a second. But, usually by this point in the presentation, most people are feeling like, okay, that's a lot of stuff to have to put together. And this feels like it's going to take me a really long time. How am I actually going to do this? So EDC partners with the Toronto Board of Trade to actually put together a program where you can go and write this export plan. And certainly I can, talk about it. I participate in the Trade Accelerator program, as it's called, but Agath is actually our representative who heads up the entire initiative for Simcoe County. So I thought, who better to talk about this than her?
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much. Can you hear me good?
Yes, perfectly. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So this is very great presentation. So EDC is our national sponsor for the Trade Accelerator program, co-deliver also with the Sandbox. We are all here to show you a little overview of what is the Trade Accelerator program. So it's TAP is a dynamic and hands-on program for small and medium-sized company, providing high growth, high potential company with the essential knowledge, resources, and coaching to help businesses grow their revenue and enter market other than Canada. So we will very excited to launch our second cohort in December. And to give you an overview of what we did last year, so we had our first cohort in 2019, and we received very good feedback from the companies. And the value of the program is the last day, the mentoring session. So as Amanda mentioned, we are here also to help you to write an export plan. So during the mentoring session, you will have one-on-one session with different mentors, and they will be able to give you some feedback on what you wrote on your export plan. So it gives you a really feedback and evaluate from it the distance with a critical eyes from the expert. Also, you will have also all the resources. So what's the impact of TAP for your company? So now we have around 950 companies that have been graduated from the program over the past 5 years. And as a slideshow, we do have a few statistics. So 71% of the graduates are now actively exporting in international markets. We have also 33% of experience average growth in export revenue after just 1 year. And 90% of the participants declare better prepared to do business internationally. And what we leverage of this program is we will have all the experts and resources from a vast network of program partners and sponsors like EDC, BDC, RBC, but also the Trade Commissioner, some local logistic company, law firms, tax firms, sales. How you will have all the experts to help you. So just to last word to finish. So TAP is very unique program and is very stays away from all the traditional academic learning approach to international trade. It engages companies in interactive case studies, group workshops, sales role play, and other activities that are hands-on and promote self-confidence. And also with the current situations that we are all facing right now, there are different areas TAP can help your company to realize your global potential. For example, it's gonna be good for you to develop a comprehensive export plan, but also to support you to become better prepared for the future, also to have access to resources, contacts, but also to enter new markets and to increase your export. So you can join us for our second cohort in December. So each session will be delivered over 5 weeks with half a day weekly session, concludes with a virtual mentoring session. And by the end of the program, company will have a complete strategic export plan fully vetted by our experts. And if you have any question, Amanda or Sandbox or myself, we are here to answer. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I definitely just, want to kind of follow up with some really great news I got about the TAP program. So I had a client who, was having some really challenging times probably about 4 years ago, and they decided to actually do the Trade Accelerator program. And, they really achieved after that some great success. It gave them the opportunity to make their business fully successful and get into several markets that they didn't anticipate being able to jump into. Now, that's really not even the end of the story. They've actually decided to do TAP for a second time. There are occasions where we have industry-focused trade accelerator programs, and this company in particular didn't have any, tech components to their company previously, but is looking to integrate that. So they actually wanted to write a technology-based export plan, and they're going to be joining TAP for a second time to actually work on that different piece, because we're going to have a few different industry experts. So, I just, again, wanted to kind of highlight how, it's so important to continually think about our growth as companies. And it's really great to, have these kind of programs and support set up that you can continually do this and know that EDC, and our other national partners are going to be there to help get you there. So I think we're just at about 10:35, which is kind of right when I said that I would kind of go over into any questions or discussions. So I don't know if we've got any questions queued up. Certainly, the other thing I was going to mention is if, there's something, a larger kind of takeaway that you wanted to chat about, or if there was any kind of specific subject that was in this presentation that you'd like me to dive into a little bit deeper, in a follow-up presentation, definitely reach out to Mackenzie, and we can either set up some one-on-one sessions or set up another presentation entirely on some of kind of the high-level stuff that we covered today. So maybe we'll see if there's any questions to kick it off.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Amanda. I mean, that story about TAP was great. Thanks, Agathe, for coming on and talking about it briefly. I know we just had an info session about it, but the more we can get out there and the word about TAP, the better. I know my two colleagues, Meg and Chris, have been working actually behind the scenes digitally for other TAP cohorts in the Sandbox. And from going to last year, the buzz in the space with TAP, to now this year being virtual and digital, I think the way the production and the way that they've evolved the production so far to bring it into December, it's going to be just as good. So we're super excited for the December cohort to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and it's so cool that your client wants to go through a second time for the tech cohort.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's, I always get such good feedback about the program just in general. So again, right now we're delivering it virtually over 5 weeks. Before that, just, I would say maybe for an FYI for those who are kind of on the line, we would have it in person. So it would be 2 days of presentations. And then, we'd have a day where you actually come, you sit, you actually write the plan, and then have a day of mentoring. And, I obviously the information and knowledge, people come to me at the end of the session and say, oh God, this would have taken me hours and hours and tons of Google searching and second guessing. And, I don't know how long it would have taken me to amass this kind of information. But the other piece that is so important is the accountability that, for small and medium-sized business owners, I mean, for large business owners as well, time is it's such a hot commodity. It never seems like there's enough, and actually having somebody to ensure that you're going to be able to dedicate some time to this is really just, of huge value in itself.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to a couple questions here. First, somebody is asking, what are the 3 main things you should consider before making your decision to start exporting? Example, size of business, market size, desired market, etc.
Oh gosh. Okay. So three, I'm like, there's probably way more than three. Let's say that. Okay. So, but definitely, top three is, identifying which market you really feel is, the best place for you to go. Identifying that market is going to be really the first step. And there's going to be a ton of components into doing that. And, a lot of it actually, I have to say, goes back to some of your own personal experiences. Where you have some of your own business connections can be very impactful. For many Canadians, of course, it's always very attractive to export to the US as a starting market. But, one of the things that I've loved to hear is stories about people who have immigrated to Canada and have chosen to start exporting to the country that they came from because they had business connections there. So kind of thinking about, almost the path of least resistance is going to be really important. I think also kind of that the costing and pricing strategy is going to be really important. And, one of the things I was going to mention, when I had done my training for being a certified international trade professional, I did through the form of international trade training. They have a ton of resources there available, like costing sheets, and even just looking at one of those will give you a good idea of some of those hidden costs that you may not have considered that you would have to kind of factor in, to make sure that you're going to be priced appropriately for the market. The final thing I'll say is, really the cultural considerations, in my opinion, are a big piece that sometimes I feel are a little bit hidden. I don't know if I'm going to say it's the most important thing. I think it's, something that you can definitely strategize around, but, thinking about how your product or service is going to be perceived in that market is so important. I think now more than ever, corporate social responsibility, environmental impacts, talking about brand is such a big conversation around the world. So, companies who are doing project related work, perhaps they might be building, a great piece of infrastructure that is going to be beneficial to a certain segment of the population. Well, thinking about how Indigenous people are going to be impacted, thinking about the environmental impact. So, kind of digging deeper on some of those items that are a little bit closer to the heart is so important in this day and age, I think. So that would be kind of my personal top three, we'll say, but the list goes on.
I bet. I bet. It's funny that you mentioned culture. The next question is somebody's asking, I know culture affects the markets you export to. Do you have any advice on how to successfully navigate this?
Yeah. And you know what? This is one of those things, I don't have a ton of personal experience in it. I mean, I hear so much anecdotal evidence from my clients on a day-to-day basis, when they're saying, where they were brought up and how it is versus, maybe just the country that's right next door, how different they can be. But this is a great opportunity to think about outsourcing. And, this is one thing that I think, people can kind of not necessarily forget, but, it's a great way to kind of gain back some of your time. Again, being at such a premium, we have to think of the most efficient way to do it. And if you're not the expert in the cultural considerations, definitely reaching out to a market research company is probably going to be a great bet. And this, I would say, kind of piece of advice applies to a lot of different areas of the business. Of course, you can have somebody in-house run your numbers, but, why not, have an external accountant to prepare your documents, So I would definitely say reaching out to the right partners is going to be a really key consideration because, they're going to have more in-depth knowledge as opposed to just, maybe your own personal experiences traveling in the country. They'll have some pretty meaningful facts and data that you can, have them discuss with you to interpret.
Perfect. Somebody's asking, I want to start exporting to Europe. With COVID and travel restrictions, what do you recommend doing since I can't travel to visit potential customers, scope out the market myself? Should I contract someone who lives there to do it for me?
So definitely, there's, agents and distributors that are, good, we'll say market entry strategies. And again, going back to that Forum for International Trade Training, they actually have an entire kind of unit. They have a ton of e-learning modules that, are really actually good. And I've done them myself. So they're not totally dry. They're actually rather interesting to read. So I would say that might be something, as recommended reading from the day to kind of take a look at that. But, also consider some of the other kind of government programs that are available. I would say, one of the things that I always experience is that government programs are so underutilized. They change all the time. And of course, as governments change, there's different programs available, but, there's some really core ones that are so good. So definitely reaching out to the Trade Commissioner Service will give you a good idea of kind of perhaps where to start. So they're a great group of people. They have people on the ground here, as well as trade commissioners in individual countries. So they usually share a space in the embassy. Usually if EDC has an international office, we share that space as well. So they can be a great place to kind of start taking a look at some of those leads for that country. And, I always say too that, your peers are a great place to get some information as well. Joining peer groups and, involving yourself in more industry events, even virtually, just to make those connections, to get kind of other people's experiences. We don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. And I think more and more, because we're kind of isolated in our homes, we are becoming a little bit more generous with our time and information and looking for those great ways to connect with folks. So definitely your peers are a great source of information, lots of government support for sure in terms of getting information. And, kind of on that note too, I would say that EDC also provides information about how to start exporting. This is actually a free service that we provide if you have specific international trade questions or questions about entering a market. You can always reach out to us to kind of help qualify some of that. I know Google can be a bit of a deep rabbit hole. So we definitely love when people come and we can give you credible information, other connections that you can kind of reach out to. And, that could kind of get you on your way of where to maybe do a little bit more digging. So if you have some specific stuff, feel free to reach out, to me after the presentation, and we can talk a little bit about starting that kind of journey into Europe.
Awesome. That's great tips. Somebody is saying, I've already started exporting and usually visit my customers a few times a year. Example, visiting their family, take them for day trips, dinners, etc. However, this year, of course, was very difficult to do this. Do you have any suggestions of things I could do to express my appreciation to my customers from a distance? That's a great question.
Yeah. And so I will say, it really will depend on, where your customer is located. Again, going back to those cultural considerations of what's appropriate and what's not, I look at, now the idea of gifts in Canada, it's not really, it's getting to be more taboo to provide gifts, to particular groups. I mean, there's so many places that have gift disclosures that, we're not allowed to accept that type of thing. Whereas in another country, it might be very commonplace to provide an actual, tangible gift. I think it really will also depend on the relationship that you have with that customer. I mean, if you are friends with their family, well, I was going to say, pat on the back, kudos to you. You have built so deep of a relationship that perhaps you should teach a Zoom. I would definitely say it will just depend on, where they're located, cultural considerations, the level of your relationship. But again, you can probably get some market research, again, reach out to us. We can probably provide, within our travel tips that EDC provides, there's often kind of some cultural, we'll say, nuggets layered in there, just, tidbits that are good to know when you travel to a country. So, a lot of the things that you might do on an everyday basis or were acceptable, you might still be able to do those things. Just because you can't hand somebody a gift in person doesn't mean you can't send them something with, a nice note. But again, whether that's warranted or not will, depend on several different factors.
Sure. Does EDC provide coaching, so to speak, to prepare me to export? I would like to learn more before I make my decision and not sure what resources to use.
So I'm like, this is a big question. I'm going to have to time myself on this one. But so yeah, so formally, of course, yes, we have the Trade Accelerator program, and that's where we do like our actual formal mentoring, where you write the plan, we give you some kind of thoughts on it. But you know, my role as an account manager, I just talk to businesses every single day. You know, there's companies that I've been talking to for years, and, you know, they are working on their strategy, and, you know, strategies change. You know, there might not be a place for EDC to provide, you know, a formal product, you know, on our first meet, but maybe later down the road there will be. But, you know, nothing I would say is kind of more meaningful than hearing people's real life experiences. You know, as an account manager, I really need to interact with all different types of businesses. So, you know, often people feel like, oh, you know, I've called for a fourth time, and, you know, I haven't necessarily had anything that I needed to buy from EDC. But, you know, this is kind of a two-way street. Hearing, you know, the actual challenges in the market and understanding, you know, what businesses need in order to be successful is, you know, I say kind of payment enough. Like, you know, that is just something that helps us to do a better job in serving our clients and being more responsive in the way that's actually more valuable and meaningful. So yeah, I would say, you know, if you have questions, or, you know, if you want to have an informal chat, EDC has lots of account managers who are always happy to have a conversation. You know, I, you know, didn't think I would ever go into international trade as a career choice, but, you know, I ended up at EDC through a referral, and, you know, I've been here for 12 years, and that has always been, you know, not only because of how fulfilling the work is, but because the people are so great. And, you know, we always seem to bring on, a group of people who just enjoy helping people. So definitely the doors are open. We're always looking to have conversations. So yeah, I would say, you know, feel free to reach out to me after this presentation. I can make sure we kind of find somebody who, you know, can, I want to say sit down, but, you know, I was going to say, set up something like this, and we can chat about, you know, where you're looking to go, maybe get you set up with some referrals. You know, that's really, you know, what we're here to do.
For sure. That first step can be so daunting, but I mean, just to have the open conversation with you guys, it's so great.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And we have one more question here in the Q&A feature. So if anybody has any last minute questions, feel free to ask, or else we'll probably wrap up after this. But this person is asking, any tips for selling First Nations art and craft to Europe using e-commerce?
Oh, that's a very specific question. So, okay, so one thing I will say, the other piece that we really didn't touch upon is grants. So EDC is not a grant provider, but I will say that's one of the things that we can provide some information on, is how to actually, you know, get some of these grants that are available. And I know there is, you know, some that are likely related to arts and culture, and there are some that are likely related to, you know, Indigenous peoples. You know, and again, there's the woman-owned business. Like, there's so many that are out there. And again, kind of, as I said before, some of this stuff is so challenging to navigate because there's such a saturation. There's so much that's available, and trying to figure out what's right for you can, you know, be, like you say, a little daunting. So yeah, there's definitely resources out there that can help you navigate grant programs. There's grant writing services. Usually accountants can also provide that service. But, you know, there's lots of stuff there. And then, you know what, I would say just having that export strategy, you know, exactly what we talked about today, going through all those steps. You know, do you have enough inventory of art? You know, who will be your target markets? Are you going to be selling direct to clients, or are you going to be looking to target galleries? You know, there's lots of different things on there, you know, within what we've talked about today, that I think, you know, would warrant kind of a larger discussion, a more detailed one at that. So yeah, I would definitely say, please feel free to reach out to Mackenzie, and maybe we can set up kind of a one-on-one side conversation as to how to kind of build this strategy out. Because I think that's, I have a personal love for art. One of my family members is a full-time artist. So I was going to say this is something that's very near and dear to my heart.
That's awesome. And so does EDC take into consideration like how to navigate e-commerce when going into a new market, perhaps? How do they make that into the conversation when starting off?
Yeah. And so again, I would say that probably, EDC is so focused on risk mitigation strategies and financial strategies. So I definitely say this would be probably a good referral for a partner, but you know what, there's so many out there. And again, there's so many pieces to an e-commerce strategy, actually having the technology set up, do you have your pricing prepared? Again, inventory is going to be a big piece. What's the turnover looking like right now? What do you want? What's going to be a measurable goal of how much do you want to be turning over? And can you actually operationally serve that market? If, what you're saying, I want to sell, just for example's sake, a piece a week. Well, are you going to be able to actually obtain that amount of pieces in order to serve the market properly? So, definitely something to consider. And, when we look a little bit deeper into that, how will you ship it? I know obviously shipping art can be challenging. We'll say it depends on whether you've got your what the medium is the canvas mounted, not mounted, there's a lot of different kind of considerations in there. So we can take a look about whether that e-commerce strategy makes sense. And, how do you kind of take a look at some of the finer pieces, like, whether you charge for shipping, when you don't charge for shipping. So, we can have a bunch of conversations and make sure you've got the right parties involved to, take a look at that.
Awesome. Well, there doesn't seem to be any more questions left, and we're almost at that time.
Perfect.
So amazing. Thank you so much, Amanda. It's such a pleasure having you on as always.
Great. Thanks for having me. And thank you, Agath, for giving such a good overview of the Trade Accelerator program. Maybe kind of my final thoughts will be, if you're looking to learn more about the Trade Accelerator program or any of the topics that we covered today, just please feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Mackenzie with your feedback. I would love to do a deeper dive on some of these subjects. There's a ton of information. It's almost kind of hard to put together a presentation that's so widespread, but yeah, we scratched the surface today and would love to dig a little bit deeper with the group. So definitely reach out with your feedback, reach out to me. Let's keep this conversation going.
Awesome. That's so great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We have recorded this session, so for those of you who maybe hopped on in the middle or weren't able to attend, we'll definitely get this resource out to all of the attendees who registered. You can head to our website, sandboxcentre.com, and under the Programs tab, we actually have more information about the upcoming cohort for the Trade Accelerator program. And also, in regards to our Experts in Residence session, like today, we have a variety of topics that vary over month to month. So at sandboxcentre.com as well, under the Programs tab, you can find Experts in Residence to see what is happening from month to month. I know tomorrow we have another session with Barristan Law, the legal brief on Trademarks 101. Feel free to go sign up for that. You can stay connected with us at Sandbox Centre on all social platforms. But other than that, that's all that we have for you today. We're so happy you joined us. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.